A lot of players think they know a couple of things that can be activated in the damage step, but let me pose you a question. Let's say I have a Mystic Tomato and my opponent destroys it by battle, and out comes an Armageddon Knight from my deck. Now, Mystic Tomato does activate in the damage step, so Armageddon Knight will be special summoned in the damage step. The question is, can Armageddon Knight activate its effect? And, that is an interesting question. If you're not sure, you don't know why, then this is the perfect video for you. I'm going to cover the 6 categories of effects that can be activated in the damage step, and this will help your gameplay and help you identify what can and can't be used in the damage step. We'll cover some obvious ones, we'll cover some well-known ones, and we'll even cover some not very well-known ones. So let's get right into the video. Alright, so before I get into this video though, I want to say a big thank you to all my subscribers. We are at 5,000 subscribers. I don't know if you can tell, I got a new camera to celebrate. Hopefully you guys enjoy the little quality bump. Thank you guys all for subscribing, and here's to the next 5,000. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, because we're going to be dropping some knowledge on you guys. Alright, so I said 6 categories of stuff that can be activated in the damage step. What's the first category, Yishan? Well, the first category is cards that just say they can be activated in the damage step. Now, I just had to get that one out of the way. I don't want some comments to be like, oh, you forgot this category. So what's an example of this? A card like Thunder Dragon Titan. A Thunder Dragon Titan does not have any of the 5 characteristics that I'm going to be mentioning in the rest of this video, but it does just say on the card that its effect can be used in the damage step. So there you go. It can be used in the damage step. So any card that says it can be used in the damage step, or like in damage calculation, which is part of the damage step, can be used during the damage step. Now, let's talk about another set of monsters. And this one's also pretty obvious, flip effects. Flip effects like Shadow monsters, like a Night Assailant, and even like Snowman Eater cards that say like, hey, when this card is flipped face up, right? That is a sort of like another category of monster that can activate the damage step, sort of like implicit in a way. And actually, that's actually going to be our next category of cards that can activate in the damage step, sort of the implied effects, where you might not sort of like, flip effects are sort of obvious. Everyone always resolves them in the damage step, but like when cards like Jirak Gwaiba, when they say, oh, when this card destroys a monster by battle, right? So it's sort of like implying that it's happening in the damage step. Like Mystic Tomato says, when this card is destroyed by battle, right? These sort of things are sort of keywords and triggers to remind you that yes, these cards do in fact activate in the damage step, right? So that's our third category. Okay, our fourth category is also pretty well known. It's cards that modify attack and defense directly. One such example of a card like this is Forbidden Lance, right? Forbidden Lance, it directly modifies attack and defense. And what do I mean by the word directly? Well, for example, let's say there is a face-up fire formation Tenki on the field, and Mystical Space Typhoon could activate and destroy it, right? That would cause a minus 100 attack points on Beast Warrior monsters. However, that's not directly changing the attack points. That's indirectly, because you're sort of activating a card effect that will destroy another card effect that will lower attack. So that can't be used in the damage step. It actually has to directly affect the monster's attack. So that's our fourth category. Okay, fifth category, we got 2 more left. Now we're starting to get a little more interesting. Okay, and then the 6th category is the most complicated. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about that. But the 5th category is anything that negates the activation of something. It has to negate the activation. It can't negate the effect, right? It has to negate the activation. What's a great example? A card that many people don't know negate the activation of something is Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. This card actually says negate the activation and therefore can be used in the damage step, unlike a lot of other hand traps like Ash Blossom, which only say that they negate the effect, right? So that's key. It has to negate the activation. You'll see this a lot on counter traps that negate like monster effects or spell and trap cards. So look out for that. It's got to negate the activation. If it says that, it can be used in the damage step. Okay, the last and most complicated category. I've been doing a lot of research to try to figure out what can and can't be used in the damage step, and this is a complicated category, so we will spend some time on it. That is trigger effects that activate on a change in location. That's category number 6. That was a little bit of a mouthful, so let's go over it slowly. Let's break it down step by step. Okay, so trigger effects that activate in a change in location. What does that mean? So first of all, we have to sort of make sure we know what a trigger effect is. A trigger effect is a kind of effect that sort of activates when something happens, right? So you'll notice like, first of all, they won't say quick effect on them. That's different than a trigger effect. And they'll say like, when this monster is summoned, do this. If a spell card is activated, do this. That's sort of like a trigger effect, right? And so what do I mean by change in location, right? Because we have two parts: trigger effects that activate in response or that their triggers are being met because they changed location. What do I mean? Well, what I mean by that is like when it goes from like the hand to the field, right? The hand and the field are two different locations. If it goes from the hand to the field, that's a change in location. If it goes from field to banished, that's a change in location, right? If a card is sent to the graveyard, it means that it came from somewhere else but the graveyard, so that would be a change in location. If a card is banished, it came from somewhere else other than banished, right? Because that's when the effect triggers. That means it's sort of a change in location. So let's take a look at like a card that we sort of all know and love, Seer Malbranche of the Burning Abyss. This card activates on a change in location, and a trigger effect that activates on change in location, because we can look, it says when this card is sent to the graveyard, or sorry, if this card is sent to the graveyard, do this, right? And so that's okay, that's our key thing. It's a trigger effect and it's activating on a change in location because it has to be sent to the graveyard. That's why when Seer is destroyed by battle, it can actually add a Burning Abyss monster or special summon a Burning Abyss monster from the graveyard to the field, right? So what is an example of a trigger effect that doesn't activate on change in location, right? Well, let's take a look at Magical Musketeer Casper, right? Magical Musketeer Casper, a common thing I see, right, is Magical Musketeer Casper, it has a trigger effect because it's waiting for a spell and trap to be activated in its column. But again, that trigger effect has nothing to do with a change in location, right? So for example, if we take like one of those Magical Musketeer quick play spells, the one that sort of changes attack points, if you activate that in the damage step, even if it's in the same column as Casper, Casper, by virtue of not having a trigger effect that triggers on the change in location, it has a trigger effect, but it doesn't trigger on a change in location, won't be able to activate its effect. So that's the sixth and final category. So to answer our question about Armageddonite and Mystic Tomato that I posed to you at the beginning of the video, if Armageddonite is special summon, right? Remember, it come from somewhere else to the field. That's what happens when something is special summoned. It came from another location to the field, the deck, the graveyard, the hand, the banished pile, whatever. It had to be on a different location. Then it came to the field. That is a trigger effect that activates on a change in location, and therefore you can activate Armageddonite. So that's the answer to the question posed at the beginning of the video. So one final thing, some cards will just also say that they can't be activated in the damage step. They say except during the damage step. Obviously, you can't use those in the damage step, right, guys? So that is what it is. So that is all I have for you guys today. If you guys found this video interesting, make sure to subscribe. I like to do sort of quick educational videos like this. Hope you guys enjoyed the new camera. Thank you for the 5,000 subscribers, and I'll see you guys in the next video.